Heidegger faces his situation. He's got to give it a memorial address for this small town celebration, this little gathering. And he supplies a purpose, a goal for himself by thinking, what is this sort of thing? What does it call on me to do? And the first thing he comes to is the most obvious. Well, it's a commemoration. And what is that? It's a kind of thinking, but a backward sort of thinking. It's remembering. And this leads him to the reflection that the power of thinking forward is so advanced these days. And in fact, that is so strong that it distracts us from this more backward kind of thinking. And that leads him to consider the importance, and perhaps all things considered, the superior importance of this backward sort of thinking. That the modern world seems to encourage us always to think, how can we do this thing without considering why we do it, or in a general sense, what purpose will it fulfill? So that's one strain. But the other obvious thing from his situation, he's called to commemorate. But why this person? Well, he was a great composer, but why him rather than the other great composers? Well, he was from here. He's one of ours. He belongs in this particular place, this small town where Heidegger also grew up. What makes that important? Well, this leads to the quote from the poet Hebel that is central to our reflection today. And then the quote is just the assertion that all good things come from being rooted, that all growth into the future, if it actually flowers and bears fruit, is somehow dependent on the past. And this, of course, is very much in dispute, and we remember that Descartes denied it. That if you have your roots in the past, then you will carry forward the errors of the past, and the best way to live is to cut yourself off from those errors and to become a new beginning for yourself. So Heidegger is exploring the other possibility, but why should we come along with him? What reasons do we have to think that his explanations are better, that he's on to something serious that we too should think through? That brings us back again to thinking. So the two concepts that dominate this reading, the rootedness and thinking, and meditative thinking backwards, go together. One thing he recognizes is that the success of calculative thinking in the modern world is destroying the particularity of places, that small places that are different from everywhere else cannot survive and cannot keep what's distinctive in the modern world, which tends to push us toward what is universal. This also was a great goal of Descartes, to consider the whole world, not to think himself a Frenchman, but to move to Amsterdam, not because he so much liked the Dutch better than the French, but that one could be an individual and therefore a universal in Amsterdam. You could pursue your calculative thinking and everyone would leave you alone. France was full of trouble for people who are individuals and not agreeing with everyone who was there already, the traditional French ways. The modern way, the calculative way, is to forget the importance of particularity and to succeed particularly as a universal. So here on 48, there's this important paragraph I pointed you to in the reading questions. What happens along with the triumph of calculative thinking? We lose our homeland. As you can see at the top of the paragraph, that in the simplest way, People leave the small places in order to come to the bigger ones. They give up simple jobs that make sense, such as farming, in order to go to universities and to make themselves more worldly people, more modern, by learning the technology that is relevant everywhere. And Heidegger was concerned with the first examples of something that's become a much larger trend in our day. That is, Heidegger was able to, in some way, see the future that with small clues that wouldn't impress us. Now, he could see the general trend that has become much more important, much more obvious in our day. But what does he see? We're consumers of things we call the media, which gives us the illusion that we can easily travel anywhere. You can go to a movie and see another place on Earth and feel in some way that you've experienced it. The magazines and the popular press give you a feeling of access to the entire world. But there may be nothing thoughtful and nothing truly distinctive about this. It's possible to see the same kind of adventure thriller that it's basically the same story, although each one picks a new distinctive place in the world. It's part of the entertainment that you see Bangkok or Africa or Paris, but you get the same unrealistic story over and over again. This way that our technology makes it easy and attractive to be universal citizens. At least that's the way we feel about it. And as that becomes more attractive, it becomes less and less attractive to stay in the small places that are different from one another. Those places begin to seem dead. The places where you cannot get an education, you cannot join the modern world, all linked together by our technology into a single thing. And because of that opportunity to leave your small and narrow and cut off place and become a member of the universal world, that we find it hard to value the small places. But this would be an embrace of Descartes' way of understanding things and a rejection of the quote from Peter Hebel about the plant that nothing grows, nothing blooms, nothing bears fruit if it isn't rooted in a particular soil. And to push that reflection forward, Heidegger will ask again, what is the character of our world? It's marked by the certain triumph of one kind of thinking and therefore an eclipse of putting in shadow of the other. And what is the greatest current triumph of that? That it's atomic power. And we'll have to wait for the next reading to say what that means. But we get a little taste of it here at the end of today's reading. If you look at the bottom of page 49, he begins to talk about a scientific conference with many Nobel Prize winners, so the greatest scientists of the current era. And what do they tell us? That we see at the very end of the reading, the top of page 50, they tell us that science is a road to the happier human life. So the complete triumph of calculative thinking tends to destroy the importance and even the particularity of small places. Tends to make everywhere the same and no distinctive place important. is in fact the key to human happiness. And it's going to be Heidegger's reflection to consider why this thing that feels so wrong to him, why this triumph of modern science, which he thinks is a deep, deep mistake, is in fact wrong-headed. He's going to try to speak to us so that we can see too that there's a wrong turn, and the greatness of the promise is part of what distracts us from the hollowness of the success. And that will be material for the reading next time.